Hello and welcome to Flaunt. Find your sparkle and create a life you love after infidelity or betrayal. I'm Lora Cheadle, and we're going to talk some more about Egypt because, as I said in last week's show, this was a truly incredible experience that brought home so much wisdom and understanding around the wound of betrayal and why it happens to us and what is the medicine we can glean from it and how it shows up in our own life and all of those things. So, I'm just going to dive right in. As a reminder, last week I shared about finding Zeptepi, which was finding that origin point of betrayal, finding where it all began, and then going back through and healing on an ancestral level, going back to that origin point in me, in you, in the female psyche, and healing that betrayal wound so we could bring balance to the feminine, bring balance to the masculine, bring balance to the unity of the masculine and feminine so we could create beauty. It was a beautiful experience of connecting with the feminine at the Isis temple, connecting with the masculine at Abu Simbel, and then finding that balance and harmony at Komombo so we could go forward to Edfu, which was the most complete and beautiful temple. So that was the journey that we went on this week or last week. Now, this week, we're going to move into the Valley of the Kings a little bit. We are going to move into the Temple of, oh my goodness, I can't say her name, Hatshepsut, something like that. I'll get better at saying her name. But Valley of the Kings, you probably have all seen Valley of the Kings portrayed in movies. That's this vast desert valley where tombs with enormous riches are underground. Now, when we went there, we went early in the morning. It was dark and the stars were magnificent. And there's these vast desert hills and these beautiful stars. And we saw a couple of different shooting stars, believe it or not. One very much looked like a shooting star. Another was like, whoa, what is that thing doing? Is it alive? Are we being welcomed by aliens? What is this? But it was an amazing experience. And once we walked into those tombs, we went into two different tombs, private access, while it was still dark outside. And then after that, then we did a regular rest of the tour where we did two other tombs and then went into King Tut's tomb as well. But with the private access ones, you walk in and you go down this long corridor into the mountain. And the sides are elaborately decorated with paintings and carvings. And then you get to the tomb. And it's this big, the rock sarcophagus with, or stone sarcophagus with everything carved into the sides. And then there's antechambers and chambers all around where the riches were stored, where the things that the king would need in his next life were stored. Oils, food, gold, beautiful carvings, boats, replicas of things that they might need in the next life. And the paintings on the walls were both scenes of things that had happened in their life so they could remember who they were, and also tributes to the gods, the goddesses. And it was magnificent. Now, when you stand there in the Valley of the Kings and you look out over these desert hills as far as the eye can see, it's shocking to think that anybody could have found these tombs in this vast wasteland of desert. It was like, whoa, how could anybody have ever found this? So when I started tuning into my guides, the librarians, when I started dropping in that tomb to a meditation, the answer that I got was, it's just below the surface. And I asked my guides, it's just below the surface? What is just below the surface? What do you mean from that? And the answer was everything. Everything we're seeking is just below the surface. Everything we need to know is just below the surface. It's all just below the surface. It's not that far underneath. It's not that hard to find. And sometimes my guides can be a little bit cheeky. And I said, that's it? Like, I'm seeking this deep spiritual wisdom of the universe. I traveled to Egypt so I could meditate in these tombs and temples. And you're just telling me it's just beneath the surface. That's it. That doesn't seem very deep. And my guides came back with, you're right, Laura, it's not that deep. It's just below the surface, which I found hysterical because how often are we seeking something that we think needs to be difficult or fancy? And we're like, I've got to work so hard for it. And really, the answer is, it's just right there. It's not deep. And that was what my guides told me. It's not that deep. It's just below the surface. And I want you to apply that to your journey, whether it's your infidelity journey, whether it's business struggles you're having, whether it's finances or family, or what are you digging for too deeply? What are you trying for too hard when really it is just below the surface? It's just right there. It's the matter of blowing the dust off, not excavating everything to its root level. And that was something that I've been sitting with and settling with, because so much of my work is around, well, we need to get to the root cause. We need to get to the root cause. And while I firmly believe that, yeah, we indeed do need to get to the root cause so many times, there are also situations where we don't have to work that hard. It's just beneath the surface. It is right there. So then from that same place of meditation, in that meditation in the temple, we were in like this side chamber, and between these two pillars there was kind of this dent in the floor, and there was so much energy coming up from the floor in that area. And some people were saying it felt like a portal, it felt like an energy source, it felt like a well. And the other thing that I got was Egypt. Egypt itself, the country, all of Egypt is a map of human consciousness. Egypt is a map of human consciousness. It's a map of ascension of consciousness on the world today. And as I leaned into that, what I heard, what I realized was, our guide had told us that only 30% of the ruins in Egypt had been uncovered. Only 30%. All of this incredible, amazing stuff, only 30% had been uncovered. Yeah. And applying that to a consciousness ascension of humans on the planet right now, that we're only 30% there. That only 30% of our gifts have been tapped, that only 30% of our consciousness has been accessed. Only 30%. There is so much more deliciousness to come. There is so much more growth and understanding to come. And that, for me, was both a little bit depressing and a little bit empowering. A little bit depressing that, like, are you kidding? We've done all of this and we're only at 30%. We have so much more to go. But also really empowering that, hey, there's more. We're not tapping out. We're not there yet. It gets better. It can be so good at 30%. Just think how much better it would be at 35 or 40. Oh my gosh, just wait until we get to 50%. So then as I sat with that, and a little bit later we got on a bus and we were driving again, and we're driving through the desert. And It was bizarre because all of a sudden, in the middle of the desert, there'll be green, just like a little patch of green or trees. And then you'll also see dogs running around. And our guide told us that just under the surface in the desert is water. There are springs, there's water not that far below. And it was such a beautiful confirmation that, yeah, it is just under the surface, that the surface can look like this dry desert, but there's water just below. All we need to do is tap into what is just under the surface. And we get this lushness, we get this greenness, we get this beauty. And then the following morning, I got up and I did a balloon ride over Luxor, over the Nile River. And that balloon ride again confirmed everything that I was told in that meditation. When you go over the Nile, oh, it is so beautiful. It truly is the land of milk and honey. It's lush, it's green. I can't even describe the smells. It's this rich, fertile soil. And like the smell of fresh cut grass, or when you break a leaf or something like that, that smell of the plant. It's like this plant smell everywhere, this beautiful, fresh, lush, life-filled scent. And being in this gorgeous balloon floating over this lush land with these beautiful smells coming up, you could see that where the river was is where the life is. And then it's almost like tree line. I don't know if you've ever seen tree line, but tree line is the point in the mountains where there's not enough oxygen for plants to live. And it's literally a line. There's like pine trees and bushes and all these things, and then a line, and then it's just rocks, and it's like the moon. That's how it was looking down on the Nile. There's this fertile, rich, lush. There's a line and there's desert sand, and it's barren, and it's hot, and it's dry, and it's nothingness. And being in that balloon floating over, it was so profound to see it's all part of the whole. It's all there, the growth and the barrenness, the lush and the nothingness. It's right there. And that you could literally walk that line between the two. And that all you have to do is step to one side or step to the other. And it was such a beautiful metaphor for the whole glass is half full, glass is half empty. It's all there. It's all part of the whole. It's not that one is good or one is bad. It's all part of the whole. We need it all. And you get to choose where you stand. You get to choose what to look at. You get to choose. The sand, the barren is so beautiful. It is so beautiful, but it in its own way. And the lushness also is so beautiful in its own way, but it's both. It's all. It's everything you ever wanted and everything, the absence of everything you ever wanted, all at the same time. And being from that elevated position, there is no coincidence that it's being from an elevated position. It's elevated physically because I was in a balloon, but it's also elevated metaphorically, that is the whole. That is that balance. And it brought me back to a few days before when we were at the temple at Komombo, which was balancing the masculine and the feminine. It's that balance. Divine masculine, divine feminine, lush, barren. It's the whole. The whole is what matters. And we get it all. We get it all. Now, so much, so much, so much, so much. After we did the Valley of the Kings, and we saw, our two private temples where I had that deep meditation. And then we went and did a couple of the temples just with everybody, and then with King Tut. and King Tut's tomb was really interesting too, because his mummified body was in there. So there was kind of both a sense of reverence. And I also picked up a little bit of a sense of anger around that, because he died young and they weren't ready for him to die. So what they did is they put him in another tomb that was not totally complete because it wasn't really ready for him. And then his temple, it was found, and all of that good stuff, and all of his the artifacts are at the Cairo Museum, and we did get to go see that, and that was amazing too. But just sitting with the energy of not quite being ready. I didn't think he was quite ready to die. Those who needed to mummify and take care of his body and build the tomb, they weren't quite ready either. This was a situation where people didn't really expect it and they weren't quite ready for it. And the irony, my hair's driving me crazy right now. I'm sitting here picking at my hair. Instead of focusing on King Tut, the irony around that, though, was that his tomb was the tomb that was the most intact, that was uncovered, that hadn't been robbed, that had all of the original artifacts in it. And how sometimes when you're not quite ready, when it's not quite right, when it's not quite as it should be, that's where the beauty lies. That's where the completeness comes in. That's where everything is restored. And think about that word, restored. His things were stored. They didn't get broken into. They didn't get robbed. They didn't have to be restored. He was stored perfectly, and it didn't have to be redone. Even though from an external perspective, one might think, oh, what a tragedy. They weren't ready for him. They had to pull this temple together last minute and bury him. And there was this huge rush to get it all taken care of. Sometimes when we think it's not the right timing, when we think it's a rush, when we think it's not as it should be, it is. It is in divine right timing, and that's where the beauty is stored. It doesn't have to be restored. That's where the beauty is stored. It's in that moment of doing what you need to do. We need to create this tomb now. We need to create this death mask now. We need to create all of these things now because he died now. And that sometimes when we think it's a rush or it's wrong, it really isn't. So what in your life feels like a rush? Now I have to deal with this. Now I have to deal with betrayal. This was never on my radar. Now I have to deal with maybe a divorce. Now I have to deal with dating again. Now I have to deal with my partner going to therapy. Now I have to deal with myself and learning how to live with an addict or whatever it is. What are all of those things you are feeling rushed to manage right now? And how might it not really be a rush? How might this be where the beauty is stored? Where is the beauty stored in this? And how might you be creating something that is perfect, whole, and complete? Just like King Tut's tomb, it was perfect, it was whole, it was complete. This was the one that, quote unquote, shouldn't have been perfect, whole, and complete, and yet it was. So what about you? What are you creating that might be perfect, whole, and complete, even though on the surface you feel like it is being rushed and it's not the right timing for you? So, Valley of the Kings, everything is deeply internal. Sand, mountains, desert, all this stuff around. The beauty is within. The riches are within. The tombs are within. The treasure is within. There's no temple, it's within. And to me, that is such a beautiful analogy for all of us, because we are the temples and our beauty is within. Our treasure is within. The Bible says that. Just about every religious text or tradition preaches that. The riches are within, the beauty is within. And when I was hearing in meditation that Egypt is a map of human consciousness, think about that. It's a map where the beauty is within. It's a map where everything under the surface is where the treasure is where the beauty is. And that was such a powerful lesson for me in the Valley of the Kings, for being able to go within and sense and see and pick that up. And then right after that, we ended up not going to the Valley of the Queens. Instead, we went to a beautiful, gorgeous temple. And let me, of the queen, I'm going to get her name pulled up here because I'm going to say it correctly. Hatshepsut. Can I say this? Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut. I can't ever say that. We went to Queen Hatshepsut's. I don't know why that's so hard for my mouth, but we went to the temple of Hatshepsut. Now, she was the wife of one of the pharaohs, and she also ruled as queen. And what I loved about her is in her iconography, in her image, she had her body done as that of a male, that of a man. Her face was the female, but she had the body of a man. Now, our guide was saying that possibly could be to show her strength, that she was a ruler, that she wanted to do all of that. But what I kept hearing in my meditation was, this is that divine balance of the feminine and the masculine, and that she was portraying herself as having that physical strength, that masculine strength, that divine compassion and strength, yet the head of the feminine wisdom, the head of that all-seeing, all-knowing divine feminine flow. And to me, she was integrating, since so much about this trip was integrating, she was integrating both masculine and feminine within herself. It's not that her body physically was that of a male. It was integrating the masculine and the feminine, the head and the heart. She had the head with the divine feminine and the heart of the divine masculine. And her temple was external. In Valley of the Kings, like I was just saying, everything is internal. It's underground. The beauty is within. And her temple was external. It was stunning. It was carved into this mountain, and it was built like of the mountain. And Horus, that bird, was at the base of the staircase going up. And then there's temples, and there's a temple of Hathor on one side, and it's this beautiful mountain, like sand mountain, carving over this temple. And hers was external. And to me, I was like, she's bringing Valley of the Kings is this internal, and she's bringing it external. And what she is showing externally, there wasn't as much riches, but there was that power, that integrated masculine and feminine power within her. And the huge statues of the bird, I'm sure you've seen him. I'll put a picture in the show notes. He was at the staircase. And as I walked up to him, I mean, this is a ginormous statue, probably, taller than me. If I were to be laying down, like twice the length of me, big, solid statue. And I went up to him before I walked up the staircase there, because I wanted to kind of seek his permission to enter. To say, thank you. I'm coming to her temple, her home. What do I need to know? Do you grant me permission to enter? What do I need to know? I want to come in reverence. I didn't want to come just as a tourist. And the bird was really interesting, because he had me wait. He had me stay there And it was almost like he was sniffing me, for lack of a better word. And then between my throat and my heart, like, that pit in the center of your throat and then the center of the heart, maybe where a necklace would lay, it was like he took his beak forward and he pecked something out of me. And I thanked him. And it was like, there you go. You're all clear to enter now. And it was really interesting because it was between the heart and the throat. And the chakra that I have been very aware of and working on is the throat chakra, because I believe in the power of communication. I'm a lawyer. I teach advocacy. I'm a podcaster. I do YouTube. The power of my voice is huge. And I thought it was really interesting that there was something between my heart and my throat that he pecked out. And I'm still not exactly sure what that was. It felt like a seed. And I wasn't quite sure, is he pecking out the seed for me to plant? Is he pecking out a seed that had been lodged in there and then it needed clearing? And I don't know. And the answer for me is it really doesn't matter. I just presented myself in that reverence, and that's what happened. And then I entered the temple, and it felt like singing. It felt like being surrounded by song, by happiness, but not frivolity, happiness at the balance, happiness that it was created. The kind of world that we want to create was created. And here we are, and it is good. And it was lovely. It was the one place where I thought, I want to live here. I could get up every day and I could wander and I could look and I could be. I want to live here. And I went over, there was this Hathor temple on one side. And I went over to the Hathor temple, and there was a lot of energy coming from that. I sat in meditation. I breathed that energy in. It was interesting to be in that energy. And I want to explain what that means, because I've said that a few times, both in last week's show, and I'll probably say more in next week's show. The energy makes you want to do things with your body. Like, I found my left hand shaking and twitching a lot. There was a ley line in a temple where wherever I put my foot on it, I would shake. And you want to move your body. I would want to, in one temple, I wanted to backbend. In one temple, I felt like I wanted to flick my tongue like a snake. I kept doing this thing with my hands where I would hold my right hand up and I would take my left middle finger and put it in the center of my palm and then curve my fingers around. And it was like they kind of cup each other. And in a way, it kept creating what I would see is a figure 8. But it was interesting because the energy of the temple made me want to do things with my body. And being with a group of people that I was with, I could do that because they were doing weird things with their bodies too, because we were feeling the flow. We were listening to it and we were just allowing. And as a somatic attachment therapist, I am very in tune with my body. The body does keep the score. The trauma that you have experienced, the fear, the pain, the joy, it's all lodged in your body. And when there is something that is lodged in your body, like that seed that was picked out of my chest, it can create pain. It can create dis-ease. It can create illness. It can create blocks that prevent you from being the full expression of all that you are and all that you can be. And when I work with people, we use movement, we use dance, we tap the body, we tap, we move, we shake, we hit, we dance in order to somatically process that energy through the body. So it was such a glorious experience being able to do that in the moment, in that field, in the temples. And so often I wasn't consciously aware, what am I releasing? It's not like, oh, now I'm going to release the pain of the time, blah, 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 blah. It's just that something came up and the body was asking to move, and I gave it permission to move. And I said yes for it to move, and it moved. And the same thing with sound. Sometimes the body wanted to hum. When I was in one of the Valley of the Kings, the very first tomb we were in, I kept hearing three pitches, like a and on the top pitch, my teeth would like rattle. They just rattled me doing that. And I kept hearing that pitch. So I just started humming it. Why? I don't know. I just heard it. And I hummed it. And I noticed how it vibrated my teeth. And then sometimes I would hold with that pitch. And I would just push and I would lean into it. And it just felt like it cleared. And again, it doesn't matter. Sometimes we don't need to know what it's doing. We just need to trust that our body, in the same way it keeps the score, our body knows how to heal. Our body's wisdom is innate and intuitive. Our body can do these things. And that's what temple is all about. Whether it's church, whether it's temple, whether it's sacred space, it's allowing our bodies to do what they need to do what they intuitively need to do in order to bring us healing or peace or joy or clarity or clearing away. And that's a big piece of it. And that's what I'm going to ask you. I'm going to challenge you to give yourself some space, ideally every day, to just do what your body says to do, whether it's movement, whether it's singing, whether it's dance. And if you're not quite sure, start in the shower. You're alone. Nobody's there with you. And just see, does shaking feel good? Does twisting feel good? Does shimmying feel good? Does what feels good? And to just give yourself that space every day to do something innate, to do something intuitive, because that is your temple space. That is your healing space. And see what shifts for you. When I work with people, that's one of the things that we do in our one-on-one meetings too. We practice just dropping in and identifying and noticing. And I lead people through a guided meditation into feeling what their body wants. And if you want to have just a one-on-one session with me where we do that, we can do that. Yes, I love working with people in packages, more than one, but you can reach out to me and we can have a one-on-one session on anything, just one-on-one, one time, not a big deal. I can read the librarians for you. I can do an intuitive reading for you. We can do somatic processing. We can talk about your situation. We can talk about obsessive thoughts. We can talk about healing from betrayal. We can do a divorce preview. Like, reach out to me. I am an unlimited resource. I've been through so much. And whatever it is that you need holding, assistance with, healing, tools, strategy, support, just reach out and ask. I do so much around advocacy training, and that reach out and ask is such a key piece of the training that I do, because unless you reach out and ask, you're not going to get it. There is such power in asking, and especially women are told to sit down and shut up, to not be disruptive and to not ask. And even in the career world, they say that men receive so much more in terms of pay or benefits or whatever it is because they ask. And women have been culturally trained to sit back and think people will notice. People will notice. Good things come to those who wait, and people will notice. And what I want to say from being a lawyer, from going through this experience of betrayal, from living life in a patriarchal system. You don't get noticed. You don't get discovered. You don't get seen. You need to ask for what you want. And when you ask for what you want, at least you have a shot of being heard. At least you have a shot. And if you don't ask, it's not going to happen. Something else that happened during our trip that was really interesting, and this advocacy is such a piece of it. You know, anytime you get groups of people together, sometimes there's differences of opinions. And then sometimes when there's a difference of opinions, people kind of start complaining about things. And then there's like a little complaining pod over here. And then there's a little irritation pod over here. And then there's a little, and while there was not much of that, in any group of people, that happens. And whenever I found myself in a situation where people were frustrated with something, whether rightfully so or because of a confusion, it doesn't matter. I was so clear at saying, you need to communicate your needs. If this is too much, you need to communicate. If this is not enough, you need to communicate. If there's something you want, you need to communicate it. You can't just sit there and say, this isn't what I expected, and I don't really like that, and I wanted more. What did you want? Did you want more time in temples? Ask for it. Did you want more guided meditation? Ask for it. Did you want more downtime? Ask for it. Did you want a different kind of a food? Ask for it. And there were several times where I would ask for things and it would be given. And if it wasn't given, at least I still got more and my needs were met in a better way. And that's, again, something that I really encourage you to lean into. What do you want? And ask for it. Do you need a payment plan? Ask for it. Do you need a shorter session? Ask for it. Do you need a longer session? Ask for it. Do you need a customized hypnotherapy session? Do you need a psychic reading? Do you need more time with the librarians? Do you need something recorded? Do you need something written out? Ask for what you need. Because there is such power in first identifying what it is that you need. Because when we are in a state of dissatisfaction, it's easy to get locked there and just to swirl in dissatisfaction. And the truth of the matter is, unless you identify what it is that you want, then you can't ask for what you want. And if you don't know what you want, that's okay too, but identify that. I'm not clear what I want, but I'm not happy with this. And I'm tired of that. And I'm frustrated around that. But I don't know exactly what it is that would help. Can you help me? Can you help me figure it out? And the answer will always be yes. Yes. So whether it's asking me for what you want, or it's asking your partner or your kids or your therapist or your best friend, please ask for what you want. And if you need help with that, again, ask me. Do you need a one-on-one session? Ask me. The answer is yes. Do you need a payment plan? Ask me. The answer is yes. Do you need longer, shorter? Ask me. The answer is yes. So that's what I want you to do, in addition to everything else that I've told you to do today, to be sure to ask. All right. Rounding out this show. There's so much going on here, but rounding out this show, after the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of, doing the temples and everything there, and going to Hatshepsut's temple. See, I'm getting better at her name. I'm getting better at her name. We had a day to relax and integrate. And I want to speak to that. There was a part of me, I'm such a go-getter, that I was like, a day to relax and integrate. I'm on vacation. And we're done at some of these temples by like 3. I have all night to integrate. What do you mean we're having a day off to integrate? It was amazing to have a day off. to integrate. And I think integration is often overlooked. And being someone who has been in the self-help world for years, I first started coaching when I left the practice of law in the early 2000s. So I've been at this a long time. I've done hypnotherapy, I've done energy work, I've done fitness coaching, wellness coaching. Before I was betrayal recovery specific, I was wellness. I was all about wellness. And you know what two of the things are that wellness coaches get hit with a lot? Stop smoking and weight loss. Those are like the two things that I cannot tell you how many people see a wellness coach because they want to lose weight and they want to stop smoking. And what makes those two things so difficult is this. First of all, you have to change so many habits, but more importantly, you have to change the energy of who you are and your identity. Because when you have grown up being overweight, say, you identify as I am the overweight kid, or I am the ugly, unhealthy, like all of these negative identities, you identify with that. Same thing for people who started smoking pretty early on. You identify as a smoker. I am a smoker. I am a drinker. I am the fat kid. There's that identity piece. And you have to shift the identity and to realize, no, there were behaviors and habits that led to the creation of that physicality, but it's not who I am. I am not a smoker. I am not a fat person. I am, I can be, I am, and there is smoking that happens, and there is extra weight that happens, but it's not who I am. And that's a really important distinction, because when you're working on losing weight or not smoking or healing from betrayal or reclaiming your life after infidelity and rebuilding yourself after divorce, it's the same thing. You have to figure out who is your identity separate from your circumstances, separate from the things that you have done in the past. And it's that integration time where the magic happens. Because I can eat good and work out every single day for 5 days, and I might not be losing weight. I might not see in the mirror, on the numbers on the scale, the differences in who I am. I have to trust and be with it and let it integrate, that the outside representation of who I am on the inside will manifest eventually. It will manifest eventually. And it's the same with recovering after betrayal, recovering after infidelity, recovering after a divorce, creating a new marriage. You might be showing up in your relationship and your partner is different and you're different, and you come together and the same thing happens. And you're like, I thought we were doing the work. And why are we in the same old pattern? Why are we doing the same fight? It's the allowing of integration time. It's okay that you had the same old fight after doing 6 months of therapy, after doing intensive work. That's okay. Do you have the awareness that this was the same old fight? Good. Are you recognizing that that's no longer who you are? Are you recognizing that it's no longer who your husband is? Are you recognizing that it takes time to integrate? It takes time to manifest externally what has shifted internally. Remember Valley of the Kings and then Hatshepsut, I can't say her name again, temple. It's the internal and the external. You need to do it on the inside, and then you need to allow it to integrate so it can show up correctly on the outside. And that's the power of integration. And that's the power of stopping. It's not that you stop forever, but you need to have a break sometimes. You don't need to see your therapist every single week. Sometimes give yourself a break. When I coach with people, you book your appointment when you want it. If you want to see me 3 times a week, lovely. If you need 6 months off, lovely. You need to give yourself space to integrate and to let things manifest. It's the whole, I spoke about the seed earlier, but it's the whole idea of that seed. You plant it and then you have to wait. And you water and you fertilize and you shine the sun and you water and you fertilize and you shine some sun and you water and you fertilize and you shine some sun and you're watering and you're fertilizing and you're shining the sun. And then one day you're like, I want to give up. And then bing, the little sprout pops up. And it's not the fully formed plant. You don't go from planting the seed to harvest, nor do you go from being betrayed to being on the other side of betrayal and fully reclaiming all facets of who you are and reclaiming everything that you let go of along the way and spiritual growth and knowledge and joy. Like, you don't just jump to that. It's a bridge. You have to walk all the way across the bridge. You have to do the work and let it integrate. It's a journey. You've planted the seed. Trust that the water and the nutrients and the sunlight are doing their jobs. Trust that that tiny little sprout that comes up that looks totally weak and can be easily crushed is one day going to blossom into a stalk, a hardy plant that is producing fruit, vegetables, grains, whatever it is. Trust that that is going to happen because it will, but it's that integration. Is integrating the food, integrating the fertilizer, integrating the sunlight, integrating all of that in order to become what you know it's going to be. So same thing for you. What phase are you in right now? Do you need to step back and take a little pause, a little integration time? Or do you need to keep leaning in right now, either that internal work or that external work, or maybe a little bit of both? But I just want you to have awareness, and like being in the balloon, I want you to float above it all. And I want you to see the beauty and the destruction. I want you to see the barren emptiness, the complete lack, and I want you to see that land of milk and honey all in the same landscape, all in the same frame, because it's all there. And what I want for you is for you to notice the beauty of both. What I want for you is for you to be able to hold and balance both and not to try to reject one at the expense of the other. I want you to go within and find the richness of those inner tombs. And I want you to go without on the outside and build and construct and make yourself that external living temple in your strength, in your power, in your beauty. Going back to last week's show, I want you to fully take the masculine and the feminine that have been submerged and rise them to the surface, to unite them in equal balance and equal fairness to create that beauty. I want you to own it. I want you to realize your power, your identity. Who are you? Who are you? Exclusive of your labels, your roles, your scripts, exclusive of the bad things that have happened, exclusive of the good things that have happened. Who are you? And how can you get back to that? Because that's what it means to heal on an energetic and a soul level. Your soul is healthy, whole, and complete. Just like King Tut's tomb, it's healthy, it's whole, it's complete, it's everything. And it's in there waiting to be discovered, waiting to be brought into the light. Reconnect to your soul, to your original divine blueprint, and heal yourself energetically by balancing by merging and by holding the all. Remember, it is just below the surface. It's not deep, it's just below the surface. I can't wait to connect with you to do our energetic healing based on my time in Egypt. I can't wait for you to reach out and just ask me for something. Ask me for an appointment. Ask me for help, and let's work one on one, whether it's advocacy, whether it's obsessive thoughts, whether it's self trust, whatever it is, ask me. Use your voice, step into your power, ask, and you shall indeed receive. Thank you so much for going with me on this incredible journey into Egypt, into the landscape of the soul. Have an amazing week. And as usual, always remember to flaunt exactly who you are, because who you are is always more than enough.